And I welcome the bill, Minister, and I welcome the opportunity to speak on it. And as we all know, and it's been well discussed here, it's to close a loophole in the Irish law that was brought into acute focus back on North Frederick Street, and that I don't think we can mention it often enough, really, that scene with private security men in balaclavas, no identification, unmarked cars, and the guards standing by. Now, so that's the background, and the background is also the precarious position of tenancies. As we know, we've discussed Threshold's Tenant Sentiment Survey 2020. 41% of participants were in their rental property less than a year, so a huge high turnover of tenants. 43% said they were forced to leave their previous rental accommodation. 91% found it difficult or extremely difficult to find rental accommodation. 19% were paying more than 50% of their take-home pay on rent. 57% are paying more than 30%, and I could go on and on. That's just the background. And I think it's important to say that when we think of that scene when that building was occupied, and I know it wasn't tenants as such, but they were occupying it, and that was the scene. And so the question, and so I welcome the bill in closing that loophole and the addition of a new category called an enforcement officer, and a definition of that, and an extension of the powers to the security authority in relation to revoking or annulling or not giving a licence, particularly in relation to a body corporate. I welcome all of that. I welcome the fact that it's going to be online for the public to see at no cost, and one couldn't but welcome all of those additions. But it does occur to me, there is the security authority and there is a board, and we've had legislation which we're now amending. And I wonder, when I was thinking about this, why did it take those horrific scenes in North Frederick Street to realise that there was a loophole in the legislation? Is there no proactive way? We've often asked for a proper review of legislation and the operation of legislation each year that would identify, so that we could be proactive. Would it have come up at the board level that they would have discussed this? I know there are representatives both from the employees, security employees, and the employers and the Gardaí Síochána. Did it never come up for discussion? Is that something you might look at to see, can the legislation be proactively reviewed with the view to changing it? The other thing that occurs to me and again, I read your speech and it was very detailed, thank you, and I want to thank, as usual, the Library Service for their very detailed brief, and it's been much discussed and I don't think I need to go into it. But what I would like to say is I looked at some of the annual reports, and so did the staff in my office, and I appreciate their work. And there seems to be a low compliance rate, Minister. I don't know if you've looked at the annual reports. And for instance, I'm not sure if I'm reading this right. So the PSA, the Private Security Authority, investigated unlicensed activity and inspected existing licence holders. So the 2019 annual report, 150 contractor compliance inspections done, showing that contractor compliance rates had dropped from 25% to 19% in the period 2017 to 19. And that category 1 non-conformities, and these were the most serious category, had risen from 47% to 64%. So the level of non-compliance and the increase in the non-compliance in serious matters is of great concern, I would have thought. So this brings me to the fact that the committee, in its wisdom, decided to not have pre-legislative scrutiny. And I would have thought it was essential in this area where we're looking at, I don't know if I'd like to describe it as a necessary evil, but I have difficulty with the private security and with their use in evictions, and I think we all have, and that I would have taken, as I said, the horrific scenes to show the loophole, but then not to have it examined at a level of the committee. I would have thought it was essential to look to tease out how have we got to this situation where we're reliant on private security firms and in relation to evictions and so on. Would have thought the committee would have been a perfect place to tease all of that out. And then there's the matter of resources. And I know there was an interdepartmental committee, and I think maybe the authority itself has pointed out they haven't enough staff in the past, they haven't enough resources, and now they're getting additional responsibilities. And I don't think anywhere in your your speech, did you look at that in terms of it's good to identify loophole, it's good to close that loophole, but if we're only doing it on paper, then we're going nowhere. So resources and staff need to be addressed by you, Minister, in your closing speech in relation to this matter. Are there any vacancies on the board? And are you familiar today with the staff that are necessary in relation to carrying out their duties properly? I think that's all I have to say on it. Cormac.
Talk to Anish and talk to